right. Let's see, are we? No. Test 1, 2, test 1, 2. There we go. All right, I'm going to see if anybody files in. See how everybody's doing. All right, here we go. All right, I don't know how long I'm going to be on, but welcome to the Rabid Atheist. I'm your host, Ed Raby. We'll see if anybody comes in. And in that case, it'll still be there. All right, hey guys. Yeah. Good to see you, Lisa. Let's see. I got Iron, Dig. Good to see all of you. I just wanted to get on real briefly. I don't know how long I can stay on in a midweek, maybe a half hour, 45 minutes. I have other things I got to do. I got to get ready for work and things like that. So I just wanted to kind of give some post thoughts on the election in the United States and what this could mean for us. Now, this is just my opinion. I could be very wrong. I've said that many times every time I've given my political opinion, but I turned out to be right on one thing, that Trump would win the popular vote. He just did that in a far more convincing fashion than I thought he would. And I was definitely wrong about Harris winning the thing the Electoral College way. So that was an error on my part. So I'll openly admit that. What does it mean, though? Yeah. So, but what does that mean? I don't know. I'm going to have to say at this point that the biggest thing that I'm thinking about is whether or not the Democrat strategies and the liberal strategies actually work. Obviously, there's a problem because this wasn't even close. Okay, the only thing that's really holding out hope right now is the U.S. House is still up for grabs, but the Republicans are ahead in that race. I think by 15 right now. At last time I looked. And so you have the Senate that's definitely Republican. So Vance being the VP doesn't really matter because the Senate can basically, the Republicans can pass anything through the Senate they want to, as long as they can get past the filibuster rule. So that's that. The White House is going to be occupied by Trump come January. So there's that. The Supreme Court is more Catholic than the Pope. So that's a problem. So that leaves the House and whether or not it'll be blue or red. And if it goes red, then the Republicans a couple times now in recent history will have pretty much control of everything for a couple of years at least. So what does that mean for the rest of us? What does that mean for atheists? What does that mean for people that oppose religion? Well, I think the one thing that's going to happen is, I said this last time this happened, that the Democrats need to get really introspective about what their strategies are and how they do things. Because there was a time when I would consider most Democrats and most liberals to be the reasonable people in the room, and also the ones that were most tolerant, genuinely tolerant, not just talking about it. And I think that's how they won so many times and how they've gained so much ground. And we've gotten away from that. I think a lot of them have gotten away from that. So that's kind of one observation. I noticed that I'm more of a subscriber to the theory that if you want to win an election, you have to get your base out there and vote. They're the thing. The independent voter thing has been a recent thing, and I just don't buy it. Okay, I don't buy it. I don't see that independents have done anything but 50-50 split for the most part. So I'm not really sure that works. So I'm sitting here I'm watching it, the results come in last night because I was up at night at work, and of course somebody had it on the TV in the break room, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, I originally did this live stream with the idea of how do I, how do I get this to be something that's a little bit more, what's going to be happening at the time, like who's going to be in charge, things like that. So So, it's like I was wondering whether even the election was going to be finished, but man, by 2 o'clock in the morning, it was like, yeah, this is over. And, it's really rare for American politics to be that clear that quickly. And especially in the last 20 years or so. And so I was like, okay, what happened? What went wrong for the Dems? And I think it all started with the fact that Biden decided to run in the primary. I think a lot of Democrats getting your base out to vote is the biggest thing. Okay. If you can get your base out to vote, then you have a good chance. There's a lot of votes cast in this election, but it's amazing to me how many votes were cast for Trump. There's a lot. A very high voter turnout. And usually when that happens, the Democrats have a better chance. At least that's been historically true, but not this time. Yeah, it's incredibly disappointing, but is it unexpected? That's my question. Is it unexpected? I'm not so sure. Okay. The real problem I have is I have even more information to say that the polling instruments that people are using to get a pure picture of what's going on are very bad, because everybody was saying this is a tight race. This is a tight race. But when you look at the results, it wasn't that tight. Okay. This was Trump, beat his opponent. It wasn't like, it's not like super duper convincing like he's trying to make it out to be. But at the same time, it wasn't even close. Yeah, it wasn't close like everybody was expecting. Okay. It's like, okay, I'm trying to go on information to try to kind of think about how things are going to go as somebody who's an analyst. And I'm like, are the sources of my information even good? Okay. Are they even good? And it leads to the question of, okay, are the Democrats deluding themselves on purpose? Are they, because if I knew how this election was going to pan out with the actual results, I would want to know that. I want accurate information, not information that hits my bias that I want to win. Okay. And so the strategy of it's close, it's close, it's close, it's close. Both sides are saying it's close. Who did that work for? The Republicans. It did not work for the Dems. So it's like, hey, Brent, good to see you. But yeah, I was surprised how quickly it was over. I thought this was going to go well into the night, and nope, it was done by 2 a.m. And the only thing that's really up for grabs yet is the House, and the Republicans are leading in that. So it's like my fears. I have this big fear of any party controlling everything, and that's a historical fear. Looking at any historical situation where one political group has got complete control, yeah, it's a scary thing. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. The thing with Trump, though, is he's very much an isolationist. Okay. So I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, it's probably the only thing I like about his policies most of the time is his isolationism. Like he says, why are we involved in this? It's not really our business. And, he does have a kind of, is the first Republican I can remember in my lifetime where in his first term way back, I don't remember him dragging us into a war. And it's like the first time ever, Bush 43, Bush 41, Reagan, all of them kind of dragged us into some sort of conflict, and that just didn't happen under Trump, and it was kind of surprising. So I don't know, but it wasn't close, like everybody said. So you have to ask yourself a question. Your analyst tools, if you're the Democrat strategist and you're sitting there and you're going, okay, it's supposed to be close, but as we're seeing these results, it's not close. Would I have done anything different? And to me, I think the mistake was made in running Biden in the first place. And then he has to bow out, and that looks weak. Okay. That's not very inspiring. Harris gets in on the fact that Biden endorses her, not because she ran into the primary like everybody else and won the nomination. It's very hard to galvanize a group of people behind somebody they didn't have a hand in picking in the first place. And, that's one explanation that's possible. There's also, bad information, things like that. I don't know what's going to happen there. It's really going to be interesting in the future because we've had Trump before. And so everybody knows what to expect. Okay. I don't think he's going to be much different as a person than he was before. I feel you, Luna. I really do. It is scary. Okay. For a lot of people, this is going to, really affect them in how they do things. And I get it. But I think that's also part of the problem is dialogue. Before the election, one of the things that began to annoy me is the ad hominem stuff. Now, that's every election, but I guess I expect better out of people like myself who constantly, theists and apologists are constantly ad hominem me and straw manning me, and they don't want to, dialogue with me necessarily. I've had to ban people, from that. So because of that. And so it's like, all right, Jova, thank you very much. Yeah. But the vote for a lesser two of evils is still a vote for evil. And that's something I cannot do. I'm going to have to change the system first. And I think for a lot of us, that includes me, by the way, I didn't vote for either one of these people. And it's just because, I explain it. It's like my vote is like Meownor. Okay. You have to be worthy to get it. And I just didn't feel like either candidate really inspired me at all. And I think that's the real issue. It's a very uninspiring election, despite it all. It was more exciting once Harris got involved as far as a political analysis, but it was just, I don't see that it was like helpful. Okay. She would have done a lot better if people had actually chosen her, like the primary process had chosen her. I think that was part of the problem. I really do. She's always had a likability problem. Okay. And I think that fit into it. But I think this surprised a lot of people. I guess a lot of people are going to be talking about abortion because now you have a Supreme Court that's clearly not in favor of women's rights to choose. You have okay. So you have that. There's that aspect of it. So I'm not, when we talk about abortion, it's going to be an issue because now with Roe v. Wade out of the way, and if the Republicans get control of Congress, they're going to try to push something through along those lines. And it's going to be very interesting if they try to force a lot of states to go a certain direction with it. And then the states' right versus federal will come up. And so I don't know. Somebody just made the comment that all serial killers are atheists, and that's just not true. I just deleted the comment. if that person makes that kind of statement again, yeah, they're not welcome here. That is an absolutely untrue. Okay. There are several serial killers that were very devout. Okay. And they had religious reasons for doing what they were doing. Um, don't make statements like that you can't back up with evidence. Sorry about that. But looking at this abortion issue, I think it's going to be a big issue. Are we going to try to influence other countries? So there's that aspect. I don't know. I mean, how would you do that? You would have to say, we're not going to do business with you. We're not going to do business with you if you don't change your views on abortion. I don't know. Gosh, that seems like we're going backwards to the 50s and 60s at that point. And the one thing that was interesting to me, I was going back, I remember 2 years ago, everybody was talking about the red wave that was coming in the midterm elections, against, we have this election for Congress away from the presidential election. Oh, Earl, I feel you, girl. I do. It's a sad day, because here we are again. So my issue is now, how did the Republicans get their red wave 2 years later? Something changed. Something happened in the last 2 years where the American public feels more confident about Trump than they do anybody else. I mean, because I'm looking at these election results, and the amount of votes that Trump got is stellar. Okay, it's huge. And that's a whole bunch of people getting galvanized. There's a whole bunch of people getting galvanized, and I think that's interesting. And how is that happening? Why is that happening? Why are so many people heading down that road? Well, I don't know. We have to look at our tactics of how we inform people, how we educate people. I'm here for you. Okay. I get it. I just didn't, I don't get how a country can change so much in 4 years as far as what they're voting for. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you're speaking as an Australian, so I will take that comment, because I think there is a problem with how the Democrats strategize. I think there's a problem with a lot of the rhetoric. I wanted to get to that a little bit because as I was coming up through the election cycle, I'm getting videos in my feed. I have a personal feed and I have the Rabid Atheist feed for YouTube, and I watch that pretty. What's coming up in my feed, because sometimes some of the best reactions I've had is somebody dropping a new video that's a theist. And one of the videos, though, that came from an atheist content creator who is a Democrat was, all MAGA supporters are idiots. That's the title. And I have to ask a question at that point. How effective is that going to be in convincing a person that's on the other side that maybe they're wrong? I don't think it's going to be very effective. I'm trying to find a way, to explain what could be done. But I think, there's a lot to be said about, what your tactics are in trying to win the hearts and mind. Yeah. I think they do live in the same reality. I think it's the problem is the perception of what that reality is. They see things differently than you do. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad or evil. It's just they think that it's different. We think of things differently. As somebody who's an atheist, I know full well what it's like to think differently about the issue of God. Okay. And so they look at me as the alien. They look at me as the outsider. And I get that. And learning how to demonstrate human empathy to people you vehemently disagree with is actually a doorway to actually convincing the other side. If you keep calling a group names, they're not going to listen to anything you have to say. And I think the Democrat liberal side has spent a lot of time this election cycle calling the other side a lot of names. We used to be, well, I shouldn't say we, but yeah, we need something where we can actually dialogue again and actually see. I mean, is it really that they see reality so differently, or we have a trouble understanding how they see reality, and so it seems different to us? You know, they would probably there would probably be some people on the other side, Earl, that would say the same about you. Okay, that they live in reality, and then you don't see it the way they do, and you're the one that's wrong. Okay, so how do we get to a reality? Yeah, but that's the issue, isn't it? They're uninformed, you know. So what does that mean? Does it mean we call them names, or does it mean we have to figure out a way to educate? That's the hard part. Yeah, both sides called each other names. So how do you switch that around? Some of the names stuck. Okay. Um, I was looking at some of the feeds, you know, people like, you know, one of the Republicans said, yeah, you guys are just weird. Okay, you're just weird. To them, you're weird. Okay. And that's what the problem is. Okay. There's no When I was a kid, I think I saw a lot more dialogue between Democrats and Republicans than I do now. It's become so polarized. And in a polarized political environment, who wins? Okay, who wins? That becomes a more difficult question. It used to be that you could present a good vision for the country, and the person who had a better positive vision of the country usually won. I'm not sure that that's going to be true. So I don't know what's going to happen. I do get nervous. Yeah, there are a lot of conspiracy theorists these days, Earl. I will definitely agree with you there. It's really hard to have a conversation, but they also I've noted that my MAGA friends, a few that I have and a few that I have at work, are very defensive as well. It's like they've been attacked a lot. So you have to ask yourself a question: is this strategy working? And the answer is obviously no. So what strategy would work? Um, I think I think the Democrats have got to figure out a better way of doing it. Okay, if they want to get across, because this wasn't even close. This was them. Um, you know, the Republicans. This was a slam dunk. This was a very one sided victory. Okay, and the only bright spot might be the House might go Democrat, maybe, but it's not looking good. Um, so it's hard. Okay, it really is hard to figure out a new strategy of how to do this. But whatever we did this time did not work. Okay, it just did not work. Um, so I don't know. I'm disappointed, but I've also lived through Trump once before. Um, I also know that the American public historically doesn't like it when one party controls everything, and usually by the next 2 year cycle, it shifts. The House at least shifts back the other way, or probably what really happens is the side that lost so badly galvanizes themselves to win that midterm election. So we'll see, but I don't know what's going to happen. Um, my issue for this channel and for all atheists out there who continue to try to be normalized is we have a president that is very, shall we say, sympathetic to the other side than us. Okay, so I agree with you. Okay, but I'm going to tell you something, Earl. When you talk about the economy, for instance, I saw a lot of atheists bring up the good economic numbers, and that's true. But you're talking about the wrong numbers because you're not talking about the numbers where people live. When I had conversations at work about this topic, they're not talking about inflation rates. They're not talking about all that stuff. Were um, they were talking about gas prices and food prices, which are still much higher than they were 4 years ago, and that's where most people live. And that's a feeling. That's a very feeling based thing. Okay, passion rules reason. That's a truism I live by. Well, but that's see you here. This is the thing, though, Mark, and I keep trying to get this across to you. It's not about logic and reason why people vote. It's how they feel. They're not dealing with true economics. Okay, when people who are feeling based in their votes, they're looking at the price of eggs. They're looking at the price of gas at the pump. They're not looking at inflation rates. I can look at inflation rates too, but the fact of the matter is, when Trump left office, the price per gallon of gas on average was $2.36 or something like that, and now it's $3.40 something. It doesn't matter what inflation rates are to these people. Okay, that's what they're looking at it. Um, so that's the issue. You can sit there and yell about that all you want, but that's where people are when they choose their vote. I mean, to me, I recognize that people vote for all kinds of reasons, but most of them are emotional. Okay. So what you're dealing with is a group of people that are like, they're not going to look at the real economic situation. They look at their personal economics. People vote where they live. Okay. And almost everybody I talk to at work, it was like the price of gas, it's the price of food, it's the price of everything that they deal with on a daily basis. And they're not going to look at those. They're not going to look at that stuff. Okay. And you can sit there and talk about what the real inflation is or what's going on or all this other stuff. Um, yeah. I mean, but yeah, but how do you make that clear, Earl, to a group of people, to the average American? That's not where they live. Okay. You can sit there and talk about inflation and corporate greed all you want, and they'll go, so what? Okay. I want somebody to make my gas price lower. I want somebody that's going to make my food price lower. Okay. Who's going to do that? Um, and so it's not, I don't know what else you do. Okay. Um, you know, but so we'll see, we'll see. I don't know it. I don't think the strategy though of getting angry, I don't know. I think all Democrats should probably take a week off and then come back when they're in a better frame of mind, because you got to communicate better and you got to reach across the aisle, no matter how much distaste it might give you, because you're not going to win people over by calling them names. You're not going to win people over by insinuating something about their intelligence. I've stopped watching on several atheist political channels for this very reason. It's like, um, do you have information here? Are you trying to win people over? To win elections, you have to win allies, not make enemies. And I don't know if we're really doing all that well. Okay, so yeah, this is kind of the point. I think he's dead on here. David's dead on here. Okay, it's hard to reason with people when it's become very religious. Um, uh, I don't know. There was an old quote once by a president: "It's the economy, stupid." I think somebody said that. But to me, every person I talk to, now this is my personal experience, but you have a lot of exit polls that are basically saying, economy, economy, economy. Okay, so do they? Yeah, if you're racist or a messiah, how would you ask that? I have a question mark, and maybe you can answer it. How do you ask that question without being insulting? Because if you're insulting with a survey question, people won't answer it. Mm. Uh, I think he might have. It might have been Reagan. Uh, I don't know if that's true, Earl. Okay. Having a minor in economics kind of, we don't talk about price gouging as an economic concept. It doesn't exist. Gouging is really a value judgment. So one person's gouging is another. I don't know how do you got to put a number on that for me to prove it exists. Okay, at what percentage point above cost do you say somebody's gouging? Okay, is it okay? It's you got to give me a number. Okay, what data? Okay, it's the issue for me is okay if an object costs $20 to make. Okay, at what point is somebody gouging? Give me a number. And at that point, it's like, once again, you're dealing with a value judgment. My economics professor basically said that the idea of gouging is a political concept. It's not an economic one. Okay. It's the age old view of capitalism, charge all the traffic will bear. Okay. And I don't have a problem with that as, because, if you don't like something, don't buy it. But when it's food and gas and stuff, yeah, you get a problem. So I don't know. I think the argument has to be a little bit different. Okay. When you're approaching people on that subject, you can blame the corporations all you want, but inflation is largely caused by government throwing more money into the economy. And that's been true forever. True. And I can tell you that the same is true also, Mark, for Democrats. Ask a Democrat what policy personally benefited them, and they would be just as lost. People don't vote that way. Okay. Once again, I have to ask the question, Earl, at what number do you say that somebody's making too much money? Give me a number. It's a value judgment. Okay. And once you realize that about economics, it's all about a value judgment. Certain things just don't make sense anymore. Well, because there's still inflation. In order to justify bringing down prices, you'd have to have deflation, and we don't have that. We've never had that. Name me a time where the dollar is deflated. You always have inflation. So there's always a justification to raise prices. There's never a justification to bring them down. They can't do it. They won't do it. Okay. They always justify, well, it's inflation. Okay. If you had deflation, actual deflation of things, you could say, hey, why do you keep raising prices when things are deflating? But you don't have that justification. Okay. It's a hard thing to talk about. I get it. Everybody has their. Okay. So, it's like it's a hard, I get it. I get why you think that makes perfect sense, but it's like, when you're dealing with value judgments, which is all economics is value judgments, it's really hard to say that somebody's charging too much. What do you mean? Give me a number. Okay. And I think that's the problem with economics. Okay. It's like when you try to apply economic principles as this, it's like, what is too much? What do you mean? And the problem with voting in this context is saying, yeah. But you're talking corporatism. You're not talking capitalism at that point. I'm against corporatism too, because they get in collusion with the government officials, and that's how they do it. That's why regulation is always good for business. A good famous example of this a few years ago, my employer's chief CEO, when somebody told him they wanted to raise the minimum wage to $15, he said, sure, no problem. And people go, well, why would he say that? Wouldn't that cost him more money? Yeah, but it also eliminated his competition. Okay. Yeah, they don't. I, I'm gonna Earl, name me how many people that you know actually understand basic economics. Okay, nobody cares about that. Okay, when people vote, they vote where their life is. Okay, they don't vote. Um, they just don't vote that way. Okay, they vote where they're looking at their feelings about their life, what's too expensive for them, what's wrong for them, what issues face them, and that's how they vote. And right now, the Republicans are tapping into that far better than the Democrats. They are definitely tapping into that better. And why is that? Okay, it's like, do we know? Uh, well, I'll tell you what the category difference is. Capitalism and free markets don't allow for corporate regulation. A true free market would be more regulation free. Okay. Corporatism loves regulation that benefits itself, and they use politicians to get it. That's the fundamental difference. Okay. Where a capitalist doesn't care. Okay. And that's just my view on it. You can take it. Yeah. Is it? Okay. Is it? Are there certain things that Democrats and liberals believe and have feelings about that maybe they don't have facts about? I think I got rid of that notion that both sides don't do this to a certain extent. Both sides do it to a certain extent. You're bringing up good points, Earl. That's why I keep referring to you. I'm not picking on you or anything. It's just you're making up good points here. My issue with that is, how do you feel about Donald Trump? Okay, comes up. It's like you may be that way, but that's not. I know you don't, maybe, and I don't. I try not to, but that's not everybody in the Democratic liberal side of the aisle. Okay. You know, people are tribal. Okay. And tribal is largely about feelings. And the Democrats are just as guilty of it as the Republicans. And for right now, the Republicans are tapping in to a tribalistic mentality that works. Okay. And the Democrats aren't. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for letting me know that. But it's like, I want you to understand that, I looked at voting a lot when I was working on my degree. And one of the things I noted about voting is 90% of people don't put a lot of time into figuring out why they should vote for a certain person. It's a very, they don't invest a lot of time in trying to figure out who they should vote for. They've already made up their mind on an emotional level what they're going to vote for. Okay, if you are of a liberal mindset, okay, you probably already emotionally knew that you were going to vote for Harris, okay, even before you even considered the issues. Okay, I think that's kind of where we're at. uh, yeah. So I think that's kind of what. I don't know. It could be. I have trouble understanding certain social concepts too. I had to really study this out in order to really understand it myself. Um, but people vote their emotions. If you take economic principles and apply them to voting, you begin to realize how little voting each individual vote matters. Okay, your vote matters. It's like it's 1 over n, and n is the number of votes cast in an election. That's your value of your vote. That's real. That's a real number. That's math. Okay, so the issue is getting groups of people to vote together in order to make something happen. David brings up a good point. Some people vote just because of the way they were raised, and that's an emotional connection to the past. Okay, so it's like they've always voted this way, so they're going to continue because it's an emotional connection. It's the same reason like people stay in religion. Okay, it's emotionally comfortable, and for them to vote a certain way is emotionally comfortable. I have to give this one credit. Mouth, you make an interesting point. I'd have to look into that one. But I know, like, for instance, the banking industry in the United States is one of the most regulated, interesting things. And so, but a lot of people have brought up this point as well, because Bren makes an excellent point too. Is it really about conservative liberal anymore? Okay, because a lot of people have brought on both sides of the aisle that you've got, like, Joe Rogan endorsed the Republican. He smokes dope, and it's like he's a pot smoker. He's a he has very liberal views on a whole bunch of issues, but he's endorsing the Republican candidate. Why? And then you got another guy that's this very conservative guy in his normal life, but he's advocating for Harris. And what you're seeing is a lot of people are very mixed bag anymore. Is it really a liberal conservative thing anymore? And this is what brings up the issue of yeah, I agree with you. I have that problem too, Earl. Okay, I see things in very black and white terms, and I have to pull myself out of that to think about them. It's a hard thing. Okay, I think it's the autism sometimes, because we have very high ideals for what social relationships should be, and people often fail us. Correct. So it's, but that brings up the issue. I mean, because a lot of people might be, they might be very pro LGBTQ, but they're also pro gun. And then they're also pro free market economics, but then they flip over on something else and they're left. And it's like everybody has this real eclectic view on things. And I don't know how a two-party system gets us all in. As a lot of people were saying earlier in this discussion, where's our third alternative? Where's our other alternative? Where is there a legitimate third, fourth, fifth party in the United States? We have this illusion of two choices, and a lot of it is that way. It's really, really hard. It's hard to really get a distinction between the two parties other than social issues most of the time, because they both kind of play this game. And so I get everybody's disappointment. If you're a left-leaning person and a Democrat, you're probably very disappointed today. And if you're not, if you're a right-leaning person and more of a conservative, you're probably like jumping up and down. But it's emotionally comfortable to always vote the same way. And our system has an emotional comfort to it. And that's part of the problem, because I don't know if we get genuine change anymore. I don't know if we ever got it in the first place. I don't know. I'm out here trying to still feel the waters of what happened. I have some theories about why things went so wrong. I think if somebody had talked Biden off of it before the primaries, so you could actually have had a choice about who your candidate was as Democrats, I think you would have done better. So it's kind of that, it's that issue of how did this happen? And obviously the strategy didn't work. Okay, it didn't work. And that's kind of hard for us. So, I know a lot of people. Yeah, I can be. I don't know. I think this is the problem that I, as a libertarian, have. Anyway, I can take the empire capitalism out of it, but the party of the two parties protect themselves at all costs. And so we're always given this double choice, but I don't fit either one of these candidates. Okay. If I take away the fact that I think Trump's a complete asshole, and I take away the fact that Harris kind of represents the cops, okay, as a libertarian, if I take those two things out of it, neither one of them excited me about what they wanted to do. And you spend a lot of time, slinging mud at each other, but you're not really telling me what you're going to do. What are you going to change? Things like that. I don't know. I'm kind of at my wit's end as to how this happens, because my biggest thing is, as a political scientist type, I feel like the sources for information pre-election were really bad. I mean, I'm looking at composite polls of every media source that are kind of put together to kind of get an overall better picture, trying to eliminate the bias, and they were still very wrong. Okay, so that's my biggest issue is I'm trying to be an analyst, and that's a I suppose that's a bright spot for you. I have to say that in my home state, this is the second time I've seen it in my lifetime where Michigan has voted red for president, and we also kind of went that way with everything else. This is like only the second time in my life I've really seen it, and it comes down to Trump. Okay, and Trump's a very good self-promoter, so. Yeah, it makes sense, David. It does. Okay, I too am an atheist and a libertarian. Okay, I've been a classic liberal libertarian pretty much all my life. It's the one thing about me that hasn't changed, and so that's kind of where I go with it. But I'm trying to navigate the political situation here, and I don't know what's going to happen. Because most of the time, I remember. Who was it? It was Drew Carey that was appearing on Penn Sunday School a long time ago before he took like the Price is Right gig. And he was talking about this very political issue. And he says, when you're a Democrat and Republicans win, you're sad. And when you're a Republican and Democrats win, you're sad. But when you're a libertarian and anybody wins, you're sad. So, yeah, it needed to decrease the contrast. Yes, correct. Very well. I get it. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of looking at it, and the two biggest surprises for me is how quick it was. I thought this was going to be far more longer and drawn out, and it did not happen that way. It's like that surprised me, and then I thought for sure this was going to be an election where maybe the Democrats would win the Electoral College but lose the popular vote, and that didn't pan out. So I'm kind of disappointed in that prediction not coming about, because I would have been interested to hear the rhetoric on both sides after that. Because the Republicans have benefited from that like 4 times, and then on the other side, they've never benefited from that. And I would have loved to hear the Democrats talk about how they have benefited from something Republicans did. It's always entertaining when either side gets the advantage the other side has, and then sees what people say about it. So it'll be interesting, but it didn't happen. Oh boy. I wish. I really do. I would love to have somebody in office that's more concerned about the welfare of the country and not a bunch of religious nonsense. Okay, I really wish religion and politics could separate itself. And it was a dream of our founding fathers to have that very thing, to have a purely secular government that dealt with it. Yeah, there's a good argument to be made for that. I don't think he believes in any. I don't know if he's an atheist though, or I think what would you call it? I think he views himself as a god. Okay, so maybe he's a worshiper and believer in himself. So I don't know if he's. Yeah, I don't know if that makes him an atheist though. Okay, because as an atheist, I don't believe I'm God. Okay, I don't. So, and the problem is though, he's going to pander to the religious side because they supported him. The question, of course, a lot of people have been asking is whether or not he can run again, and I don't know if he'll be able to, because he's getting up there into Yeah, do as thou wilt. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I don't see him as an atheist. If he worship, I don't. He worships something, but I don't think it's a god. So, does it? I thought an atheist believed in no gods. Okay, I don't think we believe in any god, including our. I don't think we would put ourselves in that category. I guess that's a good discussion item. I love your way, Blossom, of putting things the way Trump would it. That's hilarious, by the way. Yeah, honestly, I'm more scared of Vance than I am Trump. Um, honestly, I can at least say that Trump is competent in certain things. I'm not sure about Vance. So, um, he's Trump's definitely a good self promoter. He has some business savvy. He understands the economy a little bit better than most. He's demonstrated that, but man, I don't know if Vance has that. Um, all right. Well, I just wanted to get on and have a little discussion about what happened yesterday. I'm going to have to take off because I got to get to work. I may have to work anymore. So we'll see. I don't know. I can't remember. I'll have to look it up. I wonder if there are certain forms of narcissism that lead you to be a theist of yourself. So maybe that's it. Yeah, they are definitely religious. You know, but yeah, I mean, I think atheists have made good cases on their channels now several times of people who are Trump supporters that are absolutely religious about it. Some of the books they've written, they definitely think that he's the second coming of something, and I think that's the problem. It's yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Azo actually makes a coherent point. Well done, Azo. Um, but it's like a God complex. You have an inflated sense of your own self importance and power, superior, a narcissistic personality. It sounds like you copied that and pasted it. So I love you, Azo, though. But yeah, it's um, so that's kind of where I think I see Trump. Okay, definitely because it's every time he talks about what it's going to be the best thing ever. He can't make any mistakes. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens to him. But we're in for another 4 years of Trump, barring anything weird happening. So that's kind of where we are at. I think it's going to take a while for some of you to accept it based on what you've been talking about tonight. And so it's like, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I've been dealing with the fact that I haven't got what I want in politics pretty much most of my life, so I've gotten used to it. You did. Um, I don't know if he'll do that. There's money to be made in the military-industrial complex still. There's still money to be made. But thanks to everybody for coming about. I really got to go. I've got to get ready for work, and I've got some stuff I got to get done before I do that. So I just wanted to get on. I think midweek streams are going to probably be a thing, just to talk about stuff. We'll see what happens. I'll come up with a topic every week, and so we'll see what happens. But thanks everybody for coming out. I appreciate you guys. As always, you only get one go around, and then it's over. So make sure you're spending all your time, money, and opportunities on yourself, the people you love and care for, and to make it a better world, because that's what you get. And don't waste them on the trappings of religion and faith. It's a dead end. And as always, guys, thanks for stopping by, and I will catch all of you next time.